do you guys have an IATA number? Are you part of ASATA? Are you this? And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think
Right,
so.
right.
Because some might look like it's the best deal for us, but then in
Right.
practice, you realize that hey,
Right.
if you are in travel, being part of something like ASATA really like shifts you to a next level. The next, a bit harder step, because it needs guarantees and stuff, is IATA. This is for people who want to go through the selling of tickets of flights and hotels.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Legal Standpoint podcast, where we explore the legal aspects of starting and running a business venture in South Africa, one conversation at a time. If you are a business owner, startup founder, or freelancer trying to navigate contracts, compliance, or intellectual property, welcome, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Kidume Tsibule, the co-founder of Legal Standpoint, and I'm so excited to introduce today's guest on the podcast. Today, we are diving into the world of travel tech with none other than Ndabenhle Ntshangase, the co-founder of AirStudent, a platform that's making travel more accessible for everyone. Whether it's flights, accommodation, or travel packages, AirStudent is reshaping the way people book and experience travel. But behind the scenes, running a tech travel business has a lot of complexities, from navigating compliance and partnerships with airlines to fundraising in such a complicated and competitive space. Those are all the aspects that we'll be unpacking in today's conversation with Ndabenhle. If you are someone who is a travel tech enthusiast, or you've ever wanted to find out what it takes to build a tech startup, this is the conversation for you. So have a pen and a notebook ready to take some good notes from Ben. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
it's good to be here.
So happy to have you with us, and I'm happy to explore the journey of building AirStudent. And we'll take it right to the beginning. Back when you were a student at UCT. Take me through what problem you were initially trying to solve with AirStudent and what role technology played in that.
Yeah. Well, I'd first start by maybe just explaining my background and where I'm from, in order to then put it all together for and how AirStudent then was born.
Right.
So I come from quite a biggish family, a family of 6. I'm the last born. My dad comes from an even bigger family. My granddad had 5 wives and a large number of kids.
Yeah.
But something that my granddad installed in his kids, and what my dad then instilled in us, was the importance of unity. I remember when one of my sister-in-laws joined our family after marrying my brother, she was like, "You guys have a lot of meetings."
Yeah.
And so there was always a thing of working together,
Right.
for the greater benefit of everyone else, and so myself, I went to UCT. Traveling between home and university got quite pricey. So taking it back to those principles, I'd look at, there's so many other people who also travel between home and university. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to work together.
Right.
And that's when the idea of AirStudent first came about. It was born out of a need to bring people together, to leverage on community in order to bring out the best utility.
Right. I love that. So clearly there's a lot of parallels that people can draw from your experience and your background with your family, and having to have tons of meetings, which in the entrepreneurship space, there's always a meeting to be had.
There's always a meeting.
And just the power of unity and community, which is something that I think were like core principles for AirStudent when you started. So then can you just chat me through, the initial model of the business, right? I understand it was based on group purchasing power.
Yeah.
So what was that model, and why did you settle with that?
So it at first it wasn't even a business here. If it was more just a way for me to be able to get cheaper prices to go home.
Right.
It was a WhatsApp group with 17 people. And we'd come together at the end of each term, or rather right before the term ends, before we start exams. And we'd look for a date that worked for all of us, and then we'd get a group code, book, and then get whatever we get. But after the second one, I realized, hey, there could be scope to turn this into a business. And I think there was actual value I was giving to other people, and I felt that there was value for me to make as well. But in order to do that, I need to find a way to formalize it.
Right.
There wasn't any legal standpoint for me to go and research then. So at the time, I just thought, okay, I'll just register a business however I find on YouTube.
Right.
And then I needed a deal. So I went to what was an email that's been shut down now.
Yeah.
It's called ceoemail.com.
Okay.
You just type in whichever company you want in South Africa and the CEO's email would pop up.
Yeah.
And
okay, that's dope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the nice thing about being like wet behind the ears when you don't know, you're willing to try all these crazy things.
Right.
And I was at that stage. I was like, I don't have anything to lose. I put together a little spreadsheet telling the CEO of Kome how we would change his company, his life.
Yeah. How you guys would change their life.
And he gave us a deal.
Yeah.
Luckily, at the time, Eric Fenter liked the idea.
Yeah.
Responded. First time I ever got an important email as important as that. And he CC'd his sales manager and was like, hey, please look at this. This looks cool.
Yeah.
And when his sales manager found out we only had 17 people, he was like, what are you doing, dude?
Right.
Eric Fenter expects me to have 10,000 people a day.
Right.
And you want to come with 17 people.
Right.
Surely you're joking.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine, like looking back now, I don't hold any grudges. I can imagine we all have incentives to meet that drive us, and then he had his, and I just didn't fit the bill. But I guess that enthusiasm, youthful enthusiasm drove me. When I had to book my flight home, I didn't book to Durban. I booked to Johannesburg.
Yeah.
So I could wait outside his office.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah.
Waited outside his office. His PA was a lovely lady.
Yeah.
Mia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And we were having chats with Mia until she says, you know what? He doesn't have to be in this HR meeting.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he has to be in that HR meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she cancels his HR meeting, and then he has time to see me. We spend the next hour and a half just chatting.
Yeah.
I didn't even actively ask him for a deal. We just chatted about business. We chatted about I told him about stories about home. He told me about like the struggles of running such a big company. At one point, Kulula was the most visited website, trading website in South Africa.
Right.
So he was running all of that, and I left there. He was so impressed. He was so happy. He said, you know what? We'll give you a fixed deal for a specific amount of time, give you 15% off, and we'll give you a free bag.
Yeah.
I went back excited to tell my 17 people that what has happened. And within 2 days, it went from 17 people to over 600 people showing interest and wanting to be a part of our groups.
I love that.
And since then it's just become a business.
Yeah.
No longer just a WhatsApp group, but more something that we felt we could scale.
Right. And I think there's so many like powerful takeaways from what you just said. I think first of all, taking initiative and being proactive and going all the way to Johannesburg, and having like that spirit of like determination, to meet him in person, is something that you really need in entrepreneurship, right? Like constantly like knocking on those doors, and I think doing what you need to do and not being afraid of like being embarrassing or like being cringy, literally whatever it takes to move the needle. And I think that's a really like powerful takeaway. But also just a reminder that like even in tech, like tech is a people business, and we always think it's like the software and like it's the tech that's the most important, but it's always the people, behind the tech solutions. It's always the people building the actual tech. So I think what you said also now about having that meeting with Eric and like ending up talking about family and things that weren't even directly connected to, business itself. Exactly. I think, like that's like something that a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, really need to lean into, that it's always about the people and the relationships. And I think just seeing people at their core as well, like moving past people's titles and, people's roles, but being able to see a person at a human level, I think is something that's so important. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that.
100%. And on that people thing, I think it's not a coincidence that the people who rise to the top usually had known each other during the times at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's based on you have to allow yourself to be part of something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to be part of a community, and that way. As those in your community rise, you find that you will rise with them, and as you rise, you will bring them up as well. And that's those are the only people that actually make it. It's the people who understand the power of that community.
Right. That's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And I mean, I know the Kulula partnership really changed things for you guys. But I want to take a step back quickly just to when, your first group had 17 people. I think, maybe a lot of entrepreneurs expect, instant gratification. And, when you start your business in a month, it needs to be doing crazy numbers, and you need to be moving quickly. Take me through your mindset when you just had the 17 people, was that to you an indicator that you were onto something big, or were you thinking or like getting worried about the traction that it could make?
I think as having someone else, just one person else was saying, okay, I'll give you my money.
Yeah.
Made me think that actually this is something cool,
Right.
I felt very proud about what I'd created just by knowing that someone was willing to give me their money. And so people who went to university with me always remind me about the time I'd be walking on campus, like trying to give people flyers to join the groups. But I guess where I'm going with this is the growth is so small at that stage, but that even just one extra person was something I'd celebrate the whole night,
Right.
And that's there's the luxury of being young and being a student, I guess. But like that was the beauty of starting small. I started off basically just from ground zero, and it was just brick by brick. There's nothing. It was close to nothing in our business that I can't sub whoever's currently doing that I haven't done myself.
Right.
As mundane as it is, I've probably done it myself, and I can tell when someone isn't giving their best because I know what it looks like to do your best there,
Yeah.
And so it hasn't been an overnight just, suddenly we're a team of 5, we have travel consultants, we have all these businesses, it was 17 people that I fully respected, and I loved all 17 of them as customers, and respected and tried to make sure I kept them as customers.
Yeah. And I think that's again, another powerful insight just in terms of doing everything in the business yourself. I know obviously as it grows, we get to delegate to other people. But just the fact that in the early stages, there's really so much importance around knowing the business fully, all the functions, the different departments, how everything works, the different individuals, and not divorcing yourself from having to do that grunt work, of finding the customers yourself and like you were saying, handing out flyers, literally doing whatever it takes. And I think that really speaks to, you as an entrepreneur and how seriously you've taken your business from day one. And I think another thing that I'm curious about is you have a co-founder,
yes,
right? And I think there's so much we could talk about when it comes to co-founder dynamics. But could you just speak briefly to the relationship that you have with your co-founder, and how it is you guys ended up coming together as co-founders? Was there a criteria in your mind that you had in terms of the kind of co-founder that you wanted? Was it certain complementary skills that you were looking for? What was the decision-making process around having Lwandile as your co-founder?
Yeah. Shabalala and I actually met through business.
Yeah.
We had when I got to university, we had a mutual friend who always said, listen, you have to meet this guy. He is just as driven about entrepreneurship as you are. Yeah. He's always spending his weekends thinking about business. Whenever you chat to him, he's doing some project, and I was like, he's probably a grifter. Not knowing that's probably how people viewed me.
Right. Yeah. It's like a mirror, putting up a mirror to yourself.
It's like, is not really about the entrepreneurship. And then when we met while studying. So I studied BCom law, so I had some legal classes that I had to take, and he studied politics and law. So we met actually studying for an exam, a law exam.
Yeah.
And introduced by a mutual friend, of course, who'd been saying we had to meet each other, and when we got hungry because we just stayed up at the library talking about business for so long, we got hungry. Yeah. And Uber Eats had no longer had anything available because after 10 they stopped delivering.
Right, they stopped delivering.
Well, they did at the time. I don't know if they do now.
Yeah.
But we then were like, there's thousands of students here. How about we just start selling burgers?
Oh my gosh.
I kid you not.
Yeah.
And then we started off by selling burgers the next night. We one of us had an air fryer, put chips in there, sold the meal.
Yeah.
And then we started selling Red Bulls. I hope you don't see this. We also started selling cigarettes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Jokes.
Right.
No cigarettes. This is a legal podcast.
This is a PG podcast, okay?
But then, like, it got so successful, and then exams came, we had to stop. But then I was like, this is the type of person I like to spend some time with, talking about business. And then we went to different events, we chatted a bit more, until one day I told him, hey, I have this thing I'm doing that's really cool, and I'd like to scale it. And he comes in, and the first thing he says is like, well, you're not going to scale it doing it like this,
Okay, yeah.
I was at that stage, I was getting requests on Google Forms, and I'd send an email to someone saying, oh, we have space for you here, we can't, would you consider this?
Right.
Like,
that's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so what he did is he automated the form to email. So as soon as you send the email, the form, as soon as you send the form, rather,
right,
the form will
triggers
see
the email,
where you have spaces closest to the time you want to travel, and will send you an automatic email.
Yeah.
I could sleep at night all of a sudden,
right?
Because usually I would have to stay up at night, like
do it manually.
But now I could sleep at night, and I remember thinking, someone who can come in and see that and fix it that quickly, because usually people would be like, oh, I'm so proud of you. You've gotten 600 people. Wow.
Yeah.
He was like straight to business. This is how you can make this better.
Right.
And so I think it was a natural coming together where it was like, if someone can really come in and see that and not be blinded by like the perceived success, especially when you're a student,
100%,
but rather can look past that and actually focus on how to help you. I want to put that person on my team.
Yeah.
And no regrets since.
Right. And I mean, you've grown a lot together, right? And growing like AirStudent. So yeah, that's really lovely. And I think, it really speaks to just genuinely liking your co-founder, like on a human level again, because this is someone that you spend a lot of time with, so
intimate time together as well.
Yeah, right.
I think this chat will end up being about just me and him. But like when we moved to from Cape Town, actually, we Cape Town CBD has a specific way, and we both from a small town in KZN. I'm from Fred, he's from Newcastle, and so we're thinking, oh, let's move to Joburg CBD because it had the cheapest, when you looked online, it had the cheapest rent prices.
Yeah.
Moved in, and we realized, oh,
mistake.
That's why it's cheap.
Right.
That's why
it adds up.
Yeah. So we've been through quite a lot of like interesting times together.
Yeah. Lovely. Okay, awesome. And then I think I just want to touch on your experience as a student founder and the transition from being a student founder. And I think you've done entrepreneurship straight from university, right?
Yeah.
Like you didn't explore corporate or anything like that. Can you chat me through transitioning from being a student founder to doing it full time? And if there's any regrets around jumping into full-time entrepreneurship when you did, and if there's like things that you would have changed, or just how your experience has been.
Yeah. I think, entrepreneurship is like walking a tightrope. The only difference with being a student founder is like you have that net at the bottom, there's many people who started entrepreneurship with us, but then realize that actually I want to go get a job as soon as they graduated, because that a degree, especially from a prestigious university, gives you options,
right?
And so that's why I say it has that net when you're a student founder. When we left, we realized that people stopped being excited. Oh, you've got 600 and you're a student. Wow, that's good. Now it's like, oh, well, dude, what are you doing with your life? Get a job, or either you're getting a job or you create something of actual value. And we graduated in 2020, which is the worst time for any travel company. A travel tech company. The lucky thing for us though is that because we have such low overheads, it was just the two of us in our studio apartment. There wasn't really too many. It allowed us to just sit and innovate. But yeah, graduating 2020, we were like, we're gonna do it. It looks bad, but this is probably the time of the best opportunity. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. And so not too many people were traveling. And I think it gave me the thick skin, to be in the trenches. And plus, because I don't know any other way, you know, I think the toughest part I see with maybe older people who had been in corporate is really tough to then leave your salary.
Right.
You know, you've now created a life around that salary, and it's like really tough. Whereas we didn't have that. You know,
you never knew that salary.
We never knew that salary.
Right.
This is all we did know.
Right.
And so the only time I knew money coming to me was when we had enough money to pay stipends, and then we started paying salaries. But like, that wasn't there, you know, and so it gave me an opportunity to really like just create whatever life I want based on what I have.
Right.
And then also the best part is I do think it allowed me to think more naively. There's elements of being naive that gets kicked out when you start working in corporate.
Yeah.
Because you know how the world works.
Right.
Like, that's not how the world works.
Right.
You know, no one is going to ever give you that. And it's like, hey, when you're just coming from university, anyone can give you anything.
Right.
You know, I've seen companies come to university and give us things for free.
Right.
So I know if I ask correctly, or if I position myself correctly in a way that meets you, what the incentives that drive you, then you'll say yes. Something that like I think gets knocked out of you the more you work.
Right.
You know. So I'm happy about that.
100%, and like such a valuable insight also, because I agree with you 100%. Like I think there's a veil of naivety that you have as an entrepreneur, for the better or for the worse, you know, but you know, there is a veil of naivety just around, you know, you have like all this excitement and, you know, the world is your oyster and you have this great idea and you're going to make it work no matter what. And I do think you're correct. Like when people start going more into structured roles, you know, that naivety, you're right, like gets knocked out pretty quickly. And then, you know, people start dreaming a little bit less and, it just becomes an everyday thing of just waking up and going to work and not wanting to explore new things, you know.
And that's your life.
You know. So yeah, shout out to entrepreneurs, because I mean, it is a tough journey, but I think, you know, still having the enthusiasm and the excitement and like the vision also around creating something that doesn't yet exist and building the future literally is something that not a lot of people get to experience. And I think it's such a blessing. Yeah. And then how would you say the Kulula partnership changed things for you? You know, can you take me back to the day where you got the email, you know, and like what was going through your mind? Like, what were you thinking?
Probably exams.
Yeah.
But, you know, if working with reputable companies is just almost putting it on your CV that you guys don't have to vet me because this guy vet me and we trust this guy.
Credibility,
yeah. It gives you certain credibility that like all the work you do can't necessarily like quantify unless you have someone who's saying, this guy's good.
Yeah.
And Kulula gave us that, also gave us a really good deal.
Yeah.
But what that then did for us is it allowed us to actually have someone people trusted and recognized say, I'm on this guy's team. You know, I remember when they first tweeted that they were going to support us.
Yeah.
One of my friends from university came into my room and I was like, dude, did you see? I didn't have Twitter at the time.
Yeah.
Did you see? It's like, what? Like, Kulula tweeted about you.
Yeah.
Like, you lying.
Yeah.
And you see, they did. And I remember after that, the SRC contacted us and were like, hey, we see what you guys are doing and we'd like to formalize it so we can help all the students within our organization start using your services.
Right.
And so that's what it does, you know. I think the SRC is always looking for, I assume SRCs are always looking for ways to help students.
Right.
But when they know they don't have to then vet all these different things because someone else has done it.
Yeah.
You know, someone that's reputable. And that Kulula did that for us in so many different ways. With individual students who just saw, hey, okay, this is something. I know for a long time people thought that we were actually just a branch of Kulula.
Yeah, right.
The student branch of Kulula.
Yeah.
Like, so they'd book,
cool,
they'd book on their own and then they'd say, I'm a student, but I didn't get free extra luggage. Please, what's happening?
Yeah.
By the time they're emailing us and CCing Kulula.
Right.
Like, oh, you didn't book through us. I don't know what I can do for you, you know?
Yeah.
But it did give us that credibility that like it's hard to buy.
Right.
But when you work with someone like that, like it moves your business to the next level.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And I think I'd like us to shift gears a little bit now, because I think entrepreneurship generally, there's a lot of risk and uncertainty that you're navigating in when you decide to build a startup. But then you in the travel tech space decide to, continue with this, and then COVID hits in 2020. I can only imagine, but tell me, like, walk us through what you were thinking when you heard about level 5 lockdown and what implications that had for your business.
So I guess COVID was a good thing for us in that people who just knew to do business a certain way and only did it a certain way got stuck. But because we didn't have a business to protect at that stage, it gave us the time to actually compete with people without really being on their level financially.
Right.
I think about companies who relied on seeing people physically, who relied on people coming into their offices. Their overheads were absolutely killing them, and they weren't making any money at the time.
Right.
Whereas during COVID, we were sat at home running quizzes.
I remember that, yeah.
And our quizzes they also started off like with just like 100 people at first. Like over 1,000 people would sign up to the point where these things would crash, would crash the website. I remember the quiz guys who we ran the quizzes on, they emailed us telling us, hey, we had this paid version, which is going to rock you guys' lives. But then, we just had no intention. What we did, we just created multiple free versions instead.
Right. Yeah.
But what we're doing there is we knew that if we can just keep the attention of these people, if we keep the attention of the people who use us long enough, when it opens again, I guess that's the risk. Is like, does it open again? But we felt very confident. Eventually,
the world has to open.
Has to open again. And our duty then during that period was to keep people's attention for long enough that when it does open again, when they think, hey, I need to go somewhere, who do they think? Oh, the guys who did quizzes said they also do this thing very well.
That's cool.
So let's go ahead and do it. So we were able to garner like all this attention at almost free, to the point where I remember people would come give us gifts. Corporate, that's how we actually made money during that time. Corporate would come give us cash and say, hey, please put a question about our corporate.
Right.
And we will give you this amount. And I think the most we gave was like 20,000 rands in unit trusts at a point.
Right.
Because like it had so much attention and people were really wanted to be a part of it. And what we were doing though, at the core was keeping people's attention so that when it does open again, we were front of mind.
Right.
And that helped us, because when things did start opening up, not just young students, because what would happen is students were at home and they'd get their parents, hey, let's play, and their parents just so happened to be a decision maker in a business, and they're like, hey, you guys said you did travel. Would you help us with this?
Right.
So those things helped us during. I would if COVID didn't kill people, I would take it back.
Yeah. right. I just never mind that small part. Where
skip that.
A lot of people. Yeah. I'm really fascinated by that. First of all, your belief that the world has to open up again, because I think like being in the travel space, I would think that would have had a really scary, it would have been a really scary time for you, about what the future of the business would have looked like. But I think it also speaks to your resourcefulness, right? If you're not booking flights, which is like your main business model, if you're not, facilitating that process, how else can you keep people engaged, And I think, you like setting up the quizzes, like really speaks to your resourcefulness as an entrepreneur. So that's really cool. And then let's also talk about the legalities, right? Because you are in a space that is highly regulated, and there's a lot of things that you need to navigate, from compliance, to licensing. Can you chat us through what that process has been like?
I think you can see from me flying to Johannesburg to meet someone at his office or at a meeting that the approach I've taken with entrepreneurship is like, is it Google or Facebook, move fast and break things?
Yeah.
I try to do that where it's even if I can see that I'm not sure what's happening here, let me try do something and then see what happens. I'll give you more examples so you know what I mean. When we first met with one of the Kulula agents, they sat us down and said, okay, do you guys have an IATA number? Are you part of ASATA? Are you this? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I think so. Right. That time I'm a student with just like a number of people on a WhatsApp group.
Right.
But since then I've realized that, okay, had I said no, I would have demotivated myself. I would have been like, because we have an ASATA certificate now, we have an IATA now.
Yeah.
But I was nowhere near getting it then. And had I known what I had to do to get it then and said no, and then I found out what I had to do, I would have probably been like, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
So I think it is important. Right now we can't work without it. But I think just starting is better. As I say, like I'm a legal podcast here, so I have to watch what I say. But I think just starting and then making sure you then pick up what you pick up as fast as possible. You know, some things are more urgent than others. Like you know, SARS is not going to be like, oh, he didn't know what he was doing.
Right.
Then you have to be like, okay, how do I protect myself and protect this business? By doing the right thing. You know, I don't want to put us in a compromised position.
And then you also engage with like multiple stakeholders, right? So there's like partners, there's clients that you engage with. Are there any like legal hurdles that have come up, you know, in trying to navigate those different relationships, or any, you know, legal situations that have blindsided you, and like, what did you learn from that?
I think the always will be, and even right now with all the learnings, I still think there might be a time where I come back and think, oh wow, I should have probably like done this better. But one of those is there's so many agreements in our space. You know, we want to get the best deal on every single airline. Want to get the best deal on every single hotel, best deal with every single car rental company. But the problem then is if we're going to do that, we need to have agreements with them. We have to understand those agreements, because some might look like it's the best deal for us, but then in practice you realize that
low margins.
That's why it looks so good. You know, as you know, London myself did do some legal classes, but like we're very far from lawyers, and so what would happen is with that makes sense. Yeah, this makes sense, and you'd be like, yeah, this makes sense, and then you realize down the line that actually we should have probably gotten someone to read that. And so I guess it still will happen, because we are getting into so many agreements almost every day. What is important for us is I guess having the people around us who can at least like read through and see where they can help us. Ever since we got Brian involved now, he has brought that understanding of the travel industry. You know, he's been in the industry for many years, and he knows what he's doing. So even things that maybe aren't necessarily like legal jargon, but travel jargon, he's easily picks it up because he's seen it before. Unlike us who are seeing it for the first time. So having that assistance really like moves us to a different level.
And then just for the last question, so we can wrap up. Do you have any advice, or what legal advice? Not legal advice, because you're not a lawyer, so you can't give legal advice. But what advice would you share with you know, travel tech enthusiasts, or people who are wanting to get into the space and, you know, create like something not similar, because then they'd be your competitors, you know?
But I'm happy to them to come.
But just create a startup in the travel tech space, just around legal considerations that they need to make. I know you guys are also funded. So are you able to just chat through what the main or the most important legal consideration should be when you want to enter the space?
So like I said about when I mentioned not wanting to demotivate myself, I think the first thing is if your idea is good enough, let it have some traction. Otherwise, you know, prove it to us, show us.
Show us how good it is,
The famous musician Blackie, he says, "Enza manje boy, enza boy," you know, because if it's really good enough, do something, let's see, and then worry about the legal things you have to consider. But then when you're on the other side, I think if you are in travel, being part of something like ASATA really like shifts you to a next level. Not only when having to make dealing with government and things like SA Tourism, which can really help you. They're looking for companies, small companies like us, but also when being trusted by people on the street. You know, why do we trust you? Oh, I have my ASATA certificate. Beautiful, and it's the first step for you to actually get trusted. Of course, it also means showcasing that you are a trustworthy person in travel. But once you have that then gives anyone who sees you that, okay, we can trust this person. They are accredited by ASATA. The next, a bit harder step, because it needs guarantees and stuff, is IATA. This is for people who want to go through the selling of tickets of flights and hotels. Getting IATA, but of course, this means you need people who already have IATA to reference you, but also you need some sort of guarantees you're going to bring forward. This is probably put as the second step once you've gone real traction.
Yeah.
But first step, enza manje boy.
Enza manje boy. Yeah.
Enza.
Yeah.
I think start to show us.
Right.
As I say, like we start off a WhatsApp group.
Right.
Free. Do something.
Yeah. Okay.
Do something. And I guess that's probably like the one message that I hope people remember from this time, outside of the importance of getting your legal house sorted.
Yeah.
It's first do.
Right.
Important for you to do.
Yeah.
You know, do it and then let's see.
Right. Okay. So I guess that's the biggest takeaway from today. Yenza manje boy.
Yenza manje boy.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ben. Like we've really enjoyed having you on the podcast, and I've enjoyed this conversation, and it's been great to see how AirStudent's grown. And I hope it continues to grow. Like I'm sure it will, because clearly you're like a very credible entrepreneur, but someone who knows your business inside and out, and I can see the conviction that you have for it. So thanks for making the time to chat to us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Legal Standpoint podcast. It's been such a pleasure having Ben with us. And, if you are looking for more legal insights from different businesses that people have built, be sure to look at the other episodes that we filmed. Like and subscribe this episode as well. And remember, if you are a startup founder, a business owner, a freelancer, and you need help with your contracts or with navigating the regulatory landscape of your industry, we just need legal help, we're the right partners for you, because we understand, the complexities of navigating the legal space as a founder. So we're here to help. Look us up online on our LinkedIn and contact us so we can assist you. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next episode.